There's been a really interesting trend the past couple years in music making gear where everyone's trying to make smaller but also super powerful but also super portable music making machines. We've seen this with the Workstat from Moog and the popularity of the Pocket operators and even the Micro Korg that Korg just reissued and hopefully will come out before I die. I don't blame this whole trend on the Korg Volca series. Everyone loved the portability and the versatility that these little machines offered, and as the series expanded, so did the love that they garnered, and naturally the other music making companies wanted a piece of that. Slowly but surely other compact machines started to hit the market, including Roland's AIRA series. These were small radioactive looking machines that could do a lot in a really small form factor, but then Roland took it one step further and took up the Roland Compact series. 4 compact music making machines that specialize in one thing that can be connected together so that you can create music on the go anywhere. Today you already saw we are going over the Roland AIRA Compact T8 beat machine. Let's talk about it. Alright, first things first, let's find out what we get in the box. We do reverse unboxings here, so let's put everything back. So if we open our box here, we're going to have our AIRA logo. The first thing we have is our quick start guide. Note that you don't get a full manual, but it is available on Roland's website. And we'll set that right here at the bottom. The next thing you're going to get is a USB-A to USB-C cable. That'll sit underneath actually. And then a foam sleeve that's going to house the actual T8. And then it's going to rest right here. We put our top phone on top of it. It gets covered over by our logo. And then we can just seal it up. And that's everything that you get included in the package. It's a very sparse package. You don't get much, but you don't need much to operate this. Alright, let's take a tour now of our physical product. We'll start on the rear panel. As you can see, we have our Roland logo on the left side. And then on the right, we have our power on-off. We have our USB-C port where we're going to charge our internal battery, but we can also send audio and MIDI over USB with that. And then our MIDI in and out jacks, which are both 3.5mm mini jacks. And that's literally everything that's back here. Now let's go over the front. We have our charge indicator to let us know the status of our battery. A sync in and out so that we can bring in a clock signal or bring out the one from the T8. A mix in and out to bring in external sounds or bring out the sound from the T8. This is also where we plug in our headphones. And a volume knob. Down here at the bottom we have our 16-step key bed that's also going to function as our sequencer. Now moving left to right, we have this section here which has our LCD screen, our tempo knob which allows us to change the tempo and other things, our shift and pattern button as well as play and record. Now these next 4 columns are going to be our individual instruments, being the bass drum, the snare drum, the tom and the hand clap share a column, and then the open hi-hat and close hi-hat share a column. Each one's going to have a volume control, a tuning control, and the bass drum and snare drum are going to have a decay setting, but the tom and the hand clap, that's just a selection, as well as the open hi-hat and close hi-hat, that is just a selection between the 2 instruments. Now moving on to this section, you'll notice that it is a double column, and that's because this is a recreation of the TB303. It has the same dedicated volume control as well as the same 5 parameters included on the original TB303. And just beneath that you'll see 2 more rubberized buttons for the actual bass and the keyboard. And all the way here on the right side we have a delay as well as a reverb and then an accent switch right here at the bottom. And all of this is housed in a downright tiny package, and I mean tiny. This whole system is basically a few inches wide on any given dimension. It's actually small enough that I can fit it in my pocket. But granted, I have boy pockets and those things go on forever. But it can fit in a bag or a purse or just holding it in your hand without being too unwieldy. Though I say that is without headphones, which you do need if you actually want to hear what you're doing with it. Now, of course, matching the small form factor and the portability theme, this thing doesn't weigh that much either. On the official specs, it only weighs about 310 grams. That's about 11 ounces for us sturdy Americans. But when I weighed it myself, I got a reading of about 303 grams, so even lighter. So, final verdict? She tiny. Let's start making some music now. The T8 has 4 banks and 16 spaces to save patterns. That means you have 64 spots that you can save your sequences on. Now to select that, all you need to do is press the pattern button. You'll see that the one that's currently selected is lit up. and the ones that have patterns available but aren't currently selected are lit up more dim than the rest. We'll press play, and all you gotta do is select one. Now how do you access those other banks? All you have to do there is hold the pattern button and you'll see the first 4 keys will light up. You can just select that makes this pattern 2. Let go of pattern and you'll see the rest of the actual patterns on pattern 2 available. Just select one. And you can do the same for 3. You can do the same for 4. Now let's say you want to change the tempo. You'll see that our tempo is always displayed here on this LCD screen, and all we have to do is change our tempo knob here. We have a very wide tempo region going all the way down to 40 and going all the way up to the kind of absurd, if you asked me, 300 beats per minute. What an absolute mad lad. And now for some reason, if you need to dial in a very specific tempo, all you need to do is hold shift and you can adjust it by decimal points. I don't know why you would ever need to do this, but I'm sure there's someone out there who does. Now the T8 has a 32-step sequencer. There's only 16 keys here, so how do we access the other steps? Well, what we do here is we press shift, and you'll notice our step button 1 through 16 and 17 through 32. All you need to do is just press the other one. And now we're on the back half of the pattern, and you can freely switch between each of them. You'll get your confirmation on your LCD screen. Now inputting steps is very simple. All you need to do is select the instrument that you want and select the steps that you want to add or subtract. If there's something to play there, the light will be on. If there's not, the light will be off. Now if you're not into all of that math, you can just press the play button, press the record button, and then press the instrument button where you want to insert a step. And it's just that easy. And that's really how you make a basic pattern on your T8. You just select the sound you actually want to use and then just press the step that you want. But what if we want to dig in a little deeper? Let's start doing some of that. Let's add some velocity to some of these steps. Now let's say we want some of these hi-hats just to hit a little harder on the beat. I'm going to turn everything else down just so that we can really hear what the hi-hats are doing. Let's say we want to increase the velocity on the beats on the hi-hat. So what we're going to do is we're going to press the step, the accent, and you'll see we'll get V, and we can turn it up or we can turn it down. And we can do that for each beat. Yeah, now that's grooving. Let's say we want to take it a step further and add an accent too. All we have to do, we'll press the instrument button, press accent, that'll light up. Now let's add it up on the beat like we were doing before. And now if we want to turn up the strength of the accent, we'll press and hold the accent button. And we'll start turning the knob. You can go all the way up to 255, and obviously all the way down to 0, or off. I'll leave mine at a comfortable about 127. Let's start bringing everything back up. Let's start doing some more fun stuff. Let's play our pattern. Now we'll press and hold on this step right here on the snare drum. Now you see we come up with P100. Turning the knob here turns that P all the way down. And now you'll notice that sound only happens some of the time now. P here is going to stand for probability. What's the likelihood of our sound happening on this beat? Now this can be used to add some extra interest into our tracks, just to make sure they're not the same all the whole time. It lets the computer decide when a specific sound is going to be played without you having to go in and manually add whenever you want some rhythmic variance into your tracks. Alright, let's do another fun thing now. Substeps. Now, in order to do this, all you need to do is you're going to press the instrument button, and then you're going to hold down the step button. And now you'll see I have off on my LCD screen here. I'll just turn that up to 2. Now you see I have 2 hits going on there. We'll turn that up to 3. You see that now we have 3 steps. Let's turn that up to 4. And now we have a flam. So you can get a lot of really interesting rhythmic things here. This one's really for our trap producers in the audience. We can do the same thing with the hi-hat. So we can get some really interesting rhythmic patterns here going on just from this one button. And now we can take it one step further. We'll turn the quad back on here, and now if we press the instrument button, the step button, and the accent button here, we can actually have the probability of the roll happening. We got it that time. See if we get it one more roll. Yep, now we didn't. So now we can add even more rhythmic variance going into our tracks now, and that is all set up by the T8 itself. Isn't that so interesting? Now let's say we're happy with our pattern, we want to save that to the disk. All we need to do is press Shift, and we have our right key right here. We'll just press that, and now you have to select if you want to save this pattern or just save all the patterns on the device. I'll just save this pattern, and then we'll let go. We'll save that, and that's it. Now it's saved. If you were to turn off the device without saving it, everything's going to get reverted to how it was when you first turned on the device. So make sure you save if you like your patterns. Or don't if you prefer to work like that too. Now that we're done talking about the rhythm section, why don't we talk about this 303 here? Sequencing this is just as easy as everything else. Inputting notes is just as simple as pressing the bass button here and then selecting where you want your notes to be, just like with everything else. Illuminated means there's a note there. Not illuminated means there's no note there. Now whenever you do press these buttons, by default they're going to be set to the note C2. But obviously this can be changed. So let's go over that now. To edit a note, all you have to do is press down on it, and you'll see the note C2 there. And then all you have to do is change the knob button, and it'll change the note. You can change it again. Now we have a pretty wide range here, going from all the way down to C0. So I don't even know how high it goes. C7, so very high. Yeah, that's wild. Now let's say we want to add an accent to our bass line. Very simple process. All we have to do is press the step that we want to accent, and then just press the accent button. And we're going to have our status here. You can see we have A off, which means there's no accent. All we have to do, turn that knob, and it switches that right to on. Simple as that. Now for this next example, I'm going to add a note about right here, except I'm going to raise it up pretty high because I would want a pretty high contrast for this. I'll raise it up about 2 octaves. Now what we're going to do is we're going to turn on the slide. Now the same way that we did to turn on the accent, we just hold down the step button, we press accent once, we get our accent, and then we press it again and we get our slide. So all we're going to do, we're going to turn slide on. And there you go. Now we get that classic 303 slide. Now let's say this way of sequencing just doesn't mesh well with you. Well, there's actually another way to do it. If we press bass and then we press keyboard, now we have our buttons dimly lit up. And it functions as a normal keyboard now. Now this way you can kind of sort of play through your bass lines that you want to create. It's not the most intuitive, but it is a way to do that. But now to sequence patterns this way, we press the record button. And now we have step 1, and we can see what note is illuminated there. And we can move stepwise through each step. Now this way is way more akin to the original 303 if you're more familiar with that sequencer. Say we want to go to step 4, and we'll add a C sharp, but we'll raise it up an octave, and we'll actually raise it up 2 octaves. We'll also go back to step 3, we have a C sharp down, and we'll add a slide there. So now if we go back to step 1, now we have our slide and our octave implanted directly in there. Let's lower this down a little bit. Yeah, I like that. But now I actually want a little bit of an accent there now. So we'll go back on 3 and we'll just add an accent. And we can go back on 5 and add that accent back too. Now you can see this is a lot more similar to how the traditional 303 acts. And it could be a more intuitive way to sequence for you. So what if we want to tie some notes together now? Well, that's fairly simple too. For our example, let's just tie step 1 to step 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the step that we want tied. So we'll go to step 2. We have nothing there. So what we're going to do is just press keyboard and slide. And now you'll see that the previous note is now lit up dimly to show that it is now tied to that previous note. So if we go back and play it, you can now see that first note lasts a little longer. Very simple, very easy. Sequencing bass lines on the T8 is very simple, and it's a lot easier than using a traditional 303 or a TD3, that's for sure. So if you wanted to get those 303 bass lines but didn't want to go through the hassle of learning a 303 sequencer, there it is, in a much simpler form factor. Now the last thing we didn't go over were the delay and reverb knobs. There are delay and reverb knobs. We turn up the reverb, and there's reverb. We turn up the delay, and there's a delay. The delay is a little hard to hear, but it is in fact there. But you can dig a little deeper into these. Let's say now that you want to change the actual time of the delay. If we press shift and turn the delay knob, you see we actually have a lot of delay options for our subdivisions for how the delay will affect. A fun little noise that I did find was pressing the stop button with the delay turned all the way up, where we have that, and then we just kind of... That's neat. I don't know if that breaks anything, but it's neat. We can also choose how wet we want our signal to be, and that's also fairly easy. All we have to do is press shift and our delay key, which is C. So we press that, and then all we need to do is select what instrument we want. So let's just select the tom. And then we can see it's already set to 127, and we can turn that all the way down to 0 if we wanted to. And let's just go ahead and give a listen to that. Then we can play around a little bit with the timing. And then when we're done playing with it, we can just press exit. Simple as that. Well, I've started to turn this beat into a frog, but that's fine, I guess. Now reverb is basically the same thing. We can turn it up with the reverb knob here. We can press shift to see how long the reverb's going to last, all the way from 255 all the way down to 0. And we can also choose how wet we want our signal to be by having the same process of pressing shift, pressing octave down, which is the reverb button here, selecting our instrument, and then just selecting. Again from 0 all the way dry to 127 all the way wet. And then when we're done, you can just press exit. Now, as we've seen, the T8 has tons of functionality, but what if I told you it had even more? It just involved a little bit of menu diving. I won't go over everything, but why don't we just play around a little bit and I'll show you some of the things it's capable of. Now, if we press shift and go into the menu button here, we have a lot of things to go through. Obviously, just mute. We have gain, we have attune, decay, panning, attack, snappy, color, the sound uses for the toms, there's 2 of them. Here we can enter in. This is the other tom sound. Pretty cool stuff. We can exit there. We also have different hand clap sounds that we can use. This is also the way that we can change our bass wave. If we go in here, we have our saw. My personal favorite. We also change that to a square. But I'll leave that back at the saw. We'll exit back out of there. We can change the rhythm accents, the bass accents. We have tons and tons of options here for us. Now here's an interesting one. This is the overdrive. Let's go into that. We can select an instrument and then we can see that we have overdrive off on this one. Let's do a pretty extreme example here. We'll turn overdrive on the kick drum. Then we'll back off on that and then we can set the overdrive level in one menu over. We'll do that and let's just crank it up. That's absolutely incredible. And then we can turn it all the way down. Let's just back out of that. Go one back. We'll just turn that back off. Let's bring that groove back. Now this is the absolute way that you can add that classic distortion onto the 303 though. We'll turn that on, back out, go into the drive level. You can really crank that. Get that really nasty. That pure acid sound. Pretty okay with how that sounds. We'll just turn that down a little bit. We can also have the overdrive level to see how actually loud the overdrive is. A little bit of a delay sync. Now here's something fun. We have sidechain here. Just enter that. Yeah, that's insane. Listen to that duck. You can get really deep, heavy sidechain on that. Turn it down just a little bit to get a little bit more of that bass flavor in there. Move back out. And then in the one over, we can actually decide where that comes from. Pretty cool. But as you can see, we have tons and tons and tons of menu diving, so much like functionality hidden behind this menu button. And now this just doesn't only apply to the actual music. We have MIDI clock controls, a bunch of program change controls, sidechain sources, the ARIA link that you can connect your phone to. There's tons and tons of functionality here. So I encourage you to go exploring with your own T8. But for now, I think this is a pretty cool groove. And that is the Roland T8. What an absolute beast of a machine. So much power, so much versatility, and such a tiny little package. But just because it's so good doesn't mean it's without its faults. There are some things that I don't really like that much about it. The menu diving can wholeheartedly get pretty annoying, and I know it's just par for the course for having a synthesizer this small that you can't have a button per function and you have to start hiding other functionality under multiple different buttons. There's no real way to navigate these menus besides just turning the knob until you find what you want, which can get kind of clunky and kind of slow. I understand that this is probably the best way to do it while keeping the form factor this small, but it is still pretty annoying. And I probably won't find myself performing with this live anytime soon just because these knobs are so small. Plain and simple, it's just so small. I would much rather use this full-size 303 or the TD3 I have back here rather than using this little section just because it's easier to read on here. But if I'm just going out for a little bit and I just want to bring something with me to jam, this is absolutely the machine that I'm taking. As always, if you had any questions about the T8, make sure you leave them in the comments down below and I'll do my best to answer them. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, do all the YouTube things. And if you were looking for a more dedicated synthesizer, why not watch this video right here about the Behringer TD3. That's a really fun machine. I'll leave that link for you there. But that's it for me. I'll catch you guys next time.